Is it recording now? Is that Douglas out there?
Yes, Bhante. Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you after a long time.
Yes, too long.
How did you know we were even recording tonight?
I went to Line of Wisdom. I was looking for some online Dhamma because I need it at this time in my life.
Oh, yeah, we all need Dhamma.
Prashant, hello.
You've been reading and enjoying some of the stories that you've been sending out on your your blog.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you very much.
So tonight we're doing a questions and answers session with the retreatants who are here for this 7-day retreat. Okay, this question: how fast? I don't know if I can read this. How fast come back if a person do something wrong like killing? I'm not sure. Can you make this out, Prashant? Fast can calmer calmed?
Maybe recover
Yeah, talking about a rebirth.
maybe this lifetime, like what is repercussion?
It's not too clear. Whoever wrote this question, maybe they can rephrase it because I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Come back. All of us can
Come
back
back.
if a person do something wrong like killing. Kamma.
Okay, we were discussing the karma, yes, today. That depends. Now, some of our karmic actions, the effect will come back to us immediately. Now, let's say if you go and curse somebody out, they may immediately, slap you in the face or punch you in the nose, almost immediately. But somebody else might not do that, or do something else. If you tell a lie, maybe nobody will find out about it for a long time. But then maybe somewhere down the road, months or later, they might find out and then blame you. But you'd worry about it, though. That's the karma, too. You see, we do something wrong and we know it's wrong. At least some people know it's wrong. Some people think it's okay, but, the normal person. And they would worry about getting caught. So that worry is your karma, the result of the karma. So, we create the effect comes back to us in terms of our regret. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, or worrying, who's going to find out? Maybe you cheated on something, or on a job application or something else, and then somebody's going to find out and it's going to come back to you. But the time is unknown. If you go out and murder somebody, some murderers have got away for 25, 30 years without getting caught, right? And they have these cold cases, and then they get caught. But of course, they worried about it. No, I was having to look over their back. Somebody going to find out. So the karma, comes back to us in different ways, like that. And of course, if it's something really strong, like killing or something, then of course that could even come back to you in a future life. And the effects of that could come back in a future life. But the karma is immediately effective in terms of when we do something, we're going to have fear in our mind of getting caught or regret. So that's one kind of karma. But then when other people find out that you did it and they come looking for you, then that's going to be a second type of karma reaction.
Any way to mitigate effects?
Well, by apologizing perhaps or confessing like that, sometimes there's these instances of people who murdered, but then they felt terrible remorse and they went and, admitted they did it, maybe they were, and pleaded for mercy or something like that. And then the people on the other side, depending on who they were, maybe they would forgive them. And maybe they wouldn't file charges against them. So there's lots of different things involved in, the kind of effects of the karma that we create. A lot of different conditions, are going to determine what kind of a result may come about of it,
Perspective of Dhamma, like suppose person is not that Dhamma is like suppose you have stole something. Now, how can you make way like does the generosity, best of you practice a lot of generosity, all the good deeds you do, would that aid in mitigation of the karma?
It may or may not, because if you break a law and then you go out and or like steal something, do armed robbery or just kill somebody or just some other things like that, or even tell a lie. Now, you can repent and do good deeds, but the person you did that to may not forgive you, may not care about what you're doing now. And, if they're bent on revenge, then, it may or may not mitigate the circumstance. So there's so many different factors that, can affect the kind of consequences of the unskillful actions. That's why it's better not to do it again. Or if you do, then you make the determination not to repeat it. So it's the repetition that actually brings the stronger effect. I gave an example to somebody, or even an example. Maybe you start shoplifting when you were a young kid, because I confess, I shoplifted some things when I was a young, mindless teenager, And some of them I got caught for, some of them I didn't, but I worried. And somebody, I was going to get caught, and suffered from that, and lost sleep over it, for some times. But anyway, you start out, maybe you steal something. Then maybe you didn't get caught. Then you say, oh, that was pretty easy. Then let me do it again. And then maybe you do it again. And maybe you don't get caught for some time, but again, like in my experience, I suffered mentally. But at some point, you're going to get too brazen, you're going to steal something bigger, and then get caught. And then going to reap the karmic effects of that. So it's that repetition of a habit. There's a little saying, sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a destiny. So that's kind of a good little explanation. It's the thought, the intention. So just doing a one-off thing because of unmindfulness, you may or may not get some effect back. But it's when you go on repeating it, like serial killers or other people that, chronic thieves. Sometimes they're going to get caught because, especially nowadays with DNA and all these kind of ways of finding out, it's very difficult to get away with crimes. But the main thing is not to make habits of it. And so that's why in the Dhamma, if we, like we read in the puja tonight, he says, if I have done some wrong by body, speech, and mind, may the Buddha forgive me, the Dhamma. So that's kind of like you're kind of like repenting or asking for forgiveness, and you're valuing, not to do it again. So in that way, hopefully it'll cause you not to keep repeating those bad habits again and again, the one that is going to then cause some heavier karmic consequence. It's like doing a lot of other things, maybe not breaking the precepts, but you're like craving certain things and craving junk food, and you eat too much and you wind up getting sick, or causing some other problems, or you're craving danger and speed. People are doing all these things now, extreme sports, and they're killing themselves. Want to climb Mount Everest and die, or they're doing all kind of things because of greed and desire, want to become famous. These people want to break records, and they wind up killing themselves. So there's lots, there's always effects of our actions that come back to us. Any other questions about it? Yes.
What does it mean to ask the Dhamma for forgiveness?
It's you're talking to your own mind. Basically, when we say ask the Buddha for forgiveness, Buddha's not out there like a Catholic priest in a little room in church, listening and going to forgive you. But you're basically talking to your own mind, the higher nature within our own mind, Buddha, the Dhamma, that you're, so it's kind of just a symbolic thing in terms of you are then, then inadvertently you're making not to do it again. If one is in a jhana state, will that person know it? Yes. Yes, I mean, you should know it. If you know what the qualities of a jhanic state are, like I mentioned at the first jhana, applied and sustained thought. That means you put your mind on a certain topic or object, such as the breathing, and then as you go on practicing it, and your wandering thoughts subside, and your sleepiness subsides, and the mind becomes very focused and not missing a beat, and the hindrances subside, and you're feeling very, you're feeling those kind of blissful, subtle, blissful sensations, and then basically you're probably in the first jhana. Sometimes it doesn't last very long, but then sometimes as you go on learning how to get into those states easier, then that can be, even maintained for hours. And then the second jhana is when any subtle thoughts also vanish. And so there's no more applied and sustained thought. And so the mind becomes even quieter. And then even the bliss and so on fades away until you enter what is called purified mindfulness and equanimity, which is the most purest state of awareness where you're still in touch with your senses. And then you go into the formless jhanas where you lose a connection to any of the senses. They all get shut down and the mind enters into just a mental state of infinite space, infinite light, infinite space, like that. So those are all gradual things, and you would probably know it because most of them don't happen by chance. This isn't really that kind of a question. It says, thank you for hosting a longer retreat. It's helpful for those traveling longer distance to be able to stay for a longer time. Because people who live long distance, like an 8-hour drive away, they're not going to drive 8 hours just for a day of mindfulness, or even maybe a short weekend retreat. But it's worth their while to come and make a long travel, like somebody flew here, even had to fly here from somewhere, and so it makes it more worth their while and expense to to have a longer time. So that's why we try to do it at least once or twice a year. It says, will I do one in the autumn? Probably not. I have one at Christmas time, New Year's and Christmas time, usually from December 27th to January 1st, about a 4 or 5 day retreat, but this is the longest one. This is because of logistics and things like that. It's getting enough people to want to come and offer dana and things like that. It takes a lot more coordination, and also overtaxing our facilities and so on that weren't made to have big groups of people for long periods of time and so on.
Person can always come for the self-retreat prior to the retreat or stay afterwards.
Yeah, that's an option that some people do. Let's say if we're having a weekend retreat, they could come, like some person here, they're staying a few days after this retreat. So that's probably the best way, is to come and join the retreat. That way you get the help of the instruction and so on to kind of ground you. And then by the end of the weekend retreat, then hopefully you'd have the discipline to continue that for another couple of days on your own, although joining our daily meditations and so on. So this question is about right intention and right livelihood. How about people joining the army with intention to protect the country, but they might have to kill if they go to the front lines. Is it breaking the first precept? Probably in the larger context, if you actually kill somebody, then yes, it would be, breaking the precept. But joining the army, there's lots of jobs in the army where you don't have to kill, clerks and cooks, although there's people can argue about it in different ways. Well, a cook, they're feeding people to go out and kill. So they're taking it too far. If you really read there's 3 or 4 conditions for breaking a precept. There has to be the intention to do it. I'm going to kill somebody. There has to be a weapon and a means to do it. Like you got a gun or a knife. And then you actually have to do it, and the person has to die. Yeah, I was in the army. I joined the army when I was, just a mindless kid, right? And and I thought I was going to go to Vietnam and have to kill somebody, but I wasn't a Buddhist then. And, everyone was kind of doing it in those days. So I just, I didn't think about it much. But then later I came back to my senses, realized anyway, I was lucky my karma allowed me, so I didn't have to go to the front lines. But yes, it's better if somebody's a Buddhist probably not to join the army or any of the military services, I guess, because there's always that chance. Or, any other livelihood, right? Livelihood is, I'm going to talk about that hopefully in one of the talks before the retreat's over, on the Eightfold Path. But, it's the intention. Karma is intention. So there has to be the intention there. Now, if you accidentally, let's say you're just maybe getting in a scuffle with somebody and maybe you push them, but they trip and fall down and crack their head on a cement or something or and die, then, you didn't really have the intention to kill them. So karmically speaking, it wouldn't be a sort of an official act of killing. And actually karma is kind of similar to American law or judiciary system, right? Because what is first degree murder? It's premeditated murder, right? You have to plan it out and you have to carry it out. The person has to die to be considered a capital offense. Now, the second degree murder is a lesser sentence, and that's kind of, accidental. The person didn't die, or attempted murder. You're going to plan it, but the person actually didn't die. So, you're not charged with murder, you're charged with attempted murder. So the sentence is less for that too. And then there's the accidental one, where you get in a fight like the example I just gave. And then there's even negligent homicide, like these people that go out and get drunk and they kill a whole family of people, and they get off pretty lightly, because they call it negligent homicide. So all of these have a different, penalties, which would be like, the karmic effect of that. According to the law system. So in the same way, karma, it's the amount of intention you have, the amount of hatred, greed, hatred, and delusion that's behind this action determines, let's say, the severity of the reaction, that comes back. Yeah, in self-defense, there isn't the intention to kill you. I mean, usually there's not the intention to kill, it's the intention to save your family or just defend yourself. And so normally in those cases, you don't get punished too heavily by, if somebody dies in that kind of self-defense thing. So, because again, the intention, it wasn't planned out. You got attacked, right? You defended yourself and somebody died. So, the intention, again, it comes back to the intention. And the amount of greed or hatred behind the intention, that is going to determine, because it's about memory. If you plot out and kill and you had all this hatred or greed in the mind that caused you to do something, that's going to be a very heavy memory in your mind. But, just accidentally maybe killing somebody or, you didn't really mean it or plan it, then your mind may not be holding such, hard memories and guilt and all that kind of thing. I think that's where the effects, come back. Okay, this question is about what I was talking about today, about trying to tune in to the flow and see how many different, sensations you can notice. When I try to become aware of many changing sensations, like the examples I gave, I find the experience very dizzying. Like how vision looks while riding a merry-go-round. Is this normal? Please advise. It's normal if you don't have good concentration. So, because when you start noticing so many things coming at you, and even visions coming up from the unconscious, it could be, and other things, and if you're not concentrated and calm, then yes, it could even frighten you or overpower you. You know what a kaleidoscope is? How many people have looked through a kaleidoscope? And it's like a lot of things are coming at you, right? So it could be similar to that when you're tuning in to the flow of impermanence. And if you're not calm, you would get frightened. And I'll give you an example from my own personal experience. Now you might laugh a little bit, but I had an experience when I was tripping on LSD. And LSD does this kind of stuff to your mind. And I got into this experience, I closed my eyes and it felt like this millions of things were just coming at me, just a flood, like a waterfall of stuff, all kinds of disjointed stuff. I know it's coming from my own mind, but I got frightened. And And oh my God, I gotta calm down. I had somebody come and throw a bucket of water on my head and to bring me down because it was, I thought I was going to go mad. It's because I didn't understand what was happening and I didn't have the concentration and calm. I was just, it was, so, but when you develop it systematically and you're aware of what's happening and because of the concentration, it's not going to happen unless you get concentration anyway, unless you take LSD. I don't advise that. And that's the difference between taking drugs and getting these experiences and or then having them come, developing them gradually through meditation. Because with the drugs, you don't know, you haven't prepared yourself and you don't know what's going to happen, and then you get frightened when all these things happen. People have killed themselves. You jumped off of tall buildings thinking they could fly, stand in front of a freight train thinking they could stop a freight train, because this is what LSD does to your mind. It gives you these distorted kind of perceptions and so on, because the people don't understand them. But that won't happen if you meditate. And you develop the proper, the proper practice of mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. You'd have well prepared yourself for when these happen. Now here's another story from the suttas. There was a couple of there were some young monks, and they had a teacher, and he was a well-known teacher, and people thought he was an arahant. Some people thought that the teacher was an arahant. But then these students, they had their doubts. I wonder if he's really an arahant. Maybe because they were living with him a long time, they saw some behaviors, and maybe they had some doubts, whereas just casual visitors to the center might, think he was an arahant. So then these young students devised a plan, a test. So they asked the teacher to visualize an elephant, a stampeding elephant in his mind, and visualize a stampeding elephant running towards him in his mind, because evidently this guy was good at visualization. So he did that, and when the elephant got close to him in his mind, he panicked and freaked out and thought it was real. And immediately the guy said, no, he's not enlightened. He got scared of his own mind. An arahant would not do that. So that's just an example. This guy was scared of his own mental creations, and because maybe he was good in samadhi and visualizations, and he did that. Anyway, this is a story in the sutras to kind of illustrate that point.
What is the difference between thinking, like I'm getting a little bit a buzz in my foot, sensations, thinking about it, and being aware about it? Is there a difference?
Well, the sensations in the foot are the sensations, and thinking about them is a perception. But I mean, they usually will come together. Only in very deepest states of meditation that perception is not going to come. And even now, as I've been suggesting, to feel sensations, you're still going to have the perceptions about it, but that doesn't really matter. But if you continue, then at some point those perceptions will. If you don't cling to the perceptions, then they'll stop coming, and you can experience a kind of an emptiness. Now there's another sutta, a popular sutta in the text, Chula Sunyata Sutta, about the lesser discourse on emptiness. In fact, one of my Wednesday Zoom programs a few weeks ago covered that sutta. And it's one of my favorite suttas because it talks about the concept of emptiness. And basically it means wherever you are, when you're concentrating your mind and you get, focused either on the breathing, and you you lose awareness of other things and you enter like a jhana, then basically the mind becomes empty of everything except the jhana experience. So the mind becomes empty of cars out on the street. The mind becomes empty of, your cat or dog. Your mind gets empty of your other parts of your life, and the only thing that's not empty is that object of meditation. Or the only thing that's not empty is the sound vibrations connected with the senses, or the vibrations coming through the senses. But it's empty of the perceptions. The mind is no longer creating perceptions. Even the idea that this is my body and I'm meditating, even that can disappear. And there'll just be this kind of pure, what he called the descent into emptiness, that's still connected to the body, because the senses are still functioning or working, transmitting vibrations, but the conceptualizing mind is not working anymore. It's because it's become short-circuited. Sort of short-circuit that part of the brain that is producing perceptions. And even the thought of oneself, too, is said to be a part of the frontal cortex or some part of the brain. I read it somewhere, So, the meditation basically interferes with the normal brain activity because of the concentration and the other types of sort of restraints and so on. So, and so that state of awareness would be like that definition of the descent into emptiness, that the senses are still there, and your experience is grounded in the body, but it's basically just those natural sort of vibrations without the mind creating perceptions and thoughts about them. So it's like they've disappeared, they don't exist. And there's a state called perception, neither perception nor non-perception, whereas you can't say there's no perception, but you can't really say there is perception. It's that rarefied, that kind of so rarefied kind of a state. And that's the very highest jhana, actually. The fourth formless jhana. How'd we get off on that? How do you practice mindfulness when doing something like reading or replying to emails? Well, there's different ways to practice mindfulness. There's a general mindfulness, and then there's a more focused mindfulness, such as like the vipassana mindfulness, which is a very high octane level of mindfulness. So when you're doing like your daily work and so on, and you practice general mindfulness. That means you know what you're doing. So if you're washing dishes, okay, you're aware of washing dishes now, and you don't let your mind wander in other thoughts. In other words, you're just aware of basically what you need to be aware of to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. So if you're answering emails, reading emails and answering emails, you read it, understand what it says, and if you have to answer it, you answer it. We have to live in the world, we have to do things. So we have to, maintain a state of, being able to understand and do things. But not to allow the mind to, get easily distracted and wander. And do that job well, finish it, so you don't have to go back and redo it again. So the mindfulness, you do it well because you're attentive, and you also understand that what needs to be done, and you do it well, and so that you don't get blamed for doing it badly, or you don't have to repeat something to do it again. So this kind of mindfulness we're doing here, like during the sessions and slow motion, you're not going to be doing that in daily life. It's a normal thing, but you can do it for short periods. Like, at home, I'll talk about this on the last day probably, but when you're at home, you do a daily meditation in the morning and evening, and in between you do M&Ms. Every hour you pause for a minute. I'll talk about that later. Most of you have heard about that, M&Ms. Or at home, maybe just, do a mindful, if no one's around, you have the time, do a slow mindful walk, like from your bedroom to the bathroom, or from the bathroom to some other part of your house, or whatever, just walking down the hall, even if it's just for a minute or two. Once you know how to do it, you can just slow down, okay, and see if you can tune into that lifting, swinging, pressing, and even if it's just for a few minutes. So all those little things can help to reinforce your understanding of that, and make it easier to get into that the time. Walk down a supermarket, practice mindfulness walking down and go shopping. Of course, you don't want to walk too slowly, otherwise the police might come when what you're doing. But I'm going to talk more about that on the last days. Practicing mindfulness in daily life. If you had a cockroach infestation at the center, would you kill them or let them stay, assuming more humane methods were ineffective? Okay, I'll give you an example. I wonder if Douglas and Brogno is still listening there. Because this happened at the Bhavana Society in the first year or two that we were there. I was with Bhante Ji and a couple of other monks, and we were having retreats. And there was really a heavy infestation of not those big cockroaches, but those little like silver ones, those tiny ones, smaller ones. What do they call them? What? I don't know. They're small little ones. And they hide behind stuff on the walls, and they come out at night. So there's an infestation of these in the kitchen at Bhavana Society. And you go in, turn the light on in the kitchen at night, and there'd be thousands of them all over the walls and everything. And so, but you wouldn't see them too much in the daytime because they would hide. They like to come out in the dark, so they hide behind pictures on the wall, like there'd be, a bunch of them behind those pictures because it's dark behind there, or in other places. And so a lot of the lay people that came there, they got disgusted about that, and they're what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about this? And so there was one lay person there. I'm not going to mention a name, but there was one lay person. Decided to take it into his own hands and accept the karma. So he invited the monks to go on a holiday. Like me and Bhante Ji, he was going to take the monks out camping or someplace for a few days. So while we were gone, he hired a fumigation company to come there and cover the whole place like the way they do, and it fumigated the place, and I guess killed everything. But he didn't tell us what they're going to do, but we had an inkling probably of what they were going to do, but we just went along with it. And we didn't say do it, we didn't say he didn't do it, this layman did it himself. He said, I'm going to take the karma for it. And it worked, we never had a problem with it after that. So I don't know if the layperson got any bad karma back from that or not, but okay. Are there any last questions? I mean, this debate about karma could go on forever, people asking all kind of questions. Karma actually is one of what is called the imponderables. That means to try to think and figure out every little nuance of karma, why this happened, why it didn't happen, why these people get like this and other people didn't get like this. It's very, very deep and complicated. There's no easy answers. Especially why you see people doing all kind of bad things but seemingly never get caught for it. And other people that are very good and all kind of bad things seem to happen to them, But the Buddha, talked about this in suttas too. But we don't know what we did even in the last lifetime. It could come back and affect us in this lifetime, even though we led a good life. Or vice versa. Even if you led a bad life in the past life, you might have did a lot of good 2 or 3 lifetimes before that. And then that effect might take effect in this life to have a lot of good conditions, but that can change, that karma can change very fast. Anyway, okay friends, so let's go ahead and take a few minutes to stretch, or use the restroom, come back, do some standing, some stretching. Anybody else on there today? That's special. You just found it by chance. It's coming. Come on. You might have been thinking,